Hi everyone, welcome back to the 30 Days of Narcissism. I'm Dr. Ramani Durvasula, and I'm here to bring you up to speed on all the facets of narcissism you need to know. Please subscribe and you'll get notification every time we post a new video about anything related to narcissism or narcissistic abuse or narcissistic personality disorder. So let's take on a classical narcissistic pattern. It's a simple fact that they don't listen. Any of you out there who is currently in a relationship with a narcissist are like, yeah, got that one. You may wonder, why is that? Well, there's a couple of reasons for it. At one level, a narcissist is actually somewhat internally uncomfortable when it's not all about them. So if they're listening to you and you're telling them anything that doesn't have to do with them, they're not going to be that interested. It's a bit like a child's level of attention. What is very interesting is the number of times I have worked with clients who are narcissistic or have narcissistic personality disorder, and they tell me that they have ADHD. And I said, that's interesting. Where do you think that, what do you think that's about? And they'll say, oh yeah, I have a lot of trouble like listening to other people. And I realized what they were calling ADHD is probably this combination of their existing impulsivity and the fact that they can't pay attention to anything unless it's sort of a source of narcissistic supply for them. I don't know if that's ADHD, but it is definitely an inability to pay attention if it doesn't seem to have relevance directly to them. When you're in a relationship with a person and they're not listening to you, it really is an invalidating experience. It's also frustrating because not only do you feel like you're almost staring into a mirror where there's no reflection back, but it can also be very time consuming. Because you may be telling the narcissist something quite important about an arrangement that was made, about a time that you guys are leaving on a particular vacation, about a bill that needs to be paid. Because everything you say is not important, they don't listen to anything. And that way you might think you shared an important piece of information and they didn't listen. And so they didn't get it. And that might mean an important bill doesn't get paid on time, or they don't take the right days off from work. And then we'll get quite angry at you afterwards. And that's where the gaslighting can often come in. They'll say, you never said that. Well, you did. And it might very well be, but because they don't listen to anything you're saying, often because they don't value you, they don't bother. There's nothing to listen to, and important information doesn't get passed on. In fact, I often tell people, if you're trying to communicate very important information to a narcissist who does not listen to you, make sure you send it in an email where there's a read receipt required, or some other form of communication where there has to be a formal acknowledgement at a minimum that they received the communication. When the narcissist doesn't listen, and this happens in other spaces, for example, like work, it can be the same level of frustration. First of all, you may feel like you're a completely unvalued member of a work team because nobody is really paying any attention to what you're saying, even though it can be quite valuable. But narcissistic colleagues, by not listening, again, miss the opportunity and information that is being transmitted. Very important information, which can be a real problem in terms of, again, issues in the workplace, important information being disseminated in the workplace in particular. It is absolutely critical. If you have narcissistic supervisor or collaborator or even client that does not listen, you want to make sure that key communications are done in writing and are done in a way that you can track and say, yep, here's the email I sent on such and such a date, and CC other individuals who can ensure that that information gets to the correct place. It's very much a cover your ass kind of mentality, but that's what working with narcissists requires. When you grow up in a family where nobody listens to each other, it can also be very destabilizing. This idea that you're sharing something of your life with a parent and they're completely tuned out can be really upsetting and really problematic for the development, the core development of a sense of self in a young person who often learns that their value in terms of how they interact and the kinds of feedback they get from significant adults in their environment, namely their parents. So having a narcissistic parent can really set a precedent where you start to believe that the things you have to say aren't even worth listening to. Narcissists' tendency to not listen probably emanates from a variety of sources, including a lack of empathy, a complete disinterest, a sense of contempt and dismissiveness and disdain they have for people. It's interesting in many ways because a narcissist is so insecure and has such a sort of poorly developed sense of self-esteem, or rather sort of variable sense of self-esteem, as it were. Sometimes they, at their most vulnerable moments, actually probably don't think anyone cares that they're listening in the first place. But in general, it's really their contempt and devaluation for other people that can lead them to just not tune in unless they think that piece of information is important for them. And if you're in a relationship with somebody, and of any form, work, family, intimate relationship, with somebody narcissistic, and they're already showing a pattern of contempt towards you, you can all but guarantee that person is not listening to you. It's invalidating, it's dehumanizing, and it's frustrating. And it does mean that you sometimes need to make sure that you cover your own butt by making sure you communicate in ways that get important things done. And sadly, in many narcissistic relationships, you often have to do 2, 3, or 4 times more than other people have to, because it may be that they won't pay that bill on time. That responsibility is going to fall on you. Sucks, but it's the nature of the narcissistic landscape. Thanks again for tuning in. Please subscribe. You'll get notifications whenever new videos come out. And also just a reminder, I have a new book coming out. It's called Don't You Know Who I Am? How to Stay Sane in an Era of Narcissism, Entitlement, and Incivility. You can pre-order it on Amazon, and if you follow the instructions below, I will make sure that I get you a handwritten note that you can stick in that book. And then again, you also get the benefit of reading a book which really is a compendium of how to navigate the treacherous waters of narcissism in our modern world. Thank you.